Happy August, everybody, and welcome into Views from the Sideline. It is August 2nd, 2018, and on today's show, we are breaking down our top 10 favorite Pistons of all time. It should be a fun one here, so let's get into it.
Detroit basketball!
Beat the Syracuse Nationals.
And the last team to win an Eastern champion, and he was from the East, without Phil Jackson being involved, were the Detroit Pistons in 1990.
Rick Fox ending the game, hunched over his former teammate Lindsey Hunter and congratulating him as the clock ticks down. And the Detroit Pistons, wow, who won the
And your Detroit Pistons were NBA champions back in 2004. Welcome into the show, everybody. I'm your host, Chris Pappas. We got Joey Tysick, Malik Hill, and a special guest here on the show. Another Tysick, Jordan Tysick. How you doing, Jordan?
Thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here.
We got double the hot takes today.
Yeah, we got double hot
probably.
takes.
More controversy.
So guys, I mean, we got a special show today.
Yeah, this is gonna be a fun one. We got a span of different eras just within a few years of us being, like, me and my brother are 5 years apart, and just within that, like, we have a different set of players that we grew up knowing. I know Chris has a different set of players that he grew up knowing.
Yeah, watching Sad Boys for a long time.
So it'll be interesting, I think, to see who our top 10 favorite players for the Pistons.
Yeah, and on today's show, we kind of made it a point for everybody to wear a Piston jersey. Joey's rocking the Chauncey.
This is not Reggie Jackson.
It's not Reggie Jackson, unfortunately. It's Chauncey Billups.
Unfortunately?
I'm a Reggie guy,
I think
right?
fortunately.
Chill.
Jeez.
Chauncey had his time. It's Reggie's time to shine. He's going to bring a chip.
I hope so.
Jordan's rocking the Ben Wallace.
Here to
Malik
go.
rocking the nice Jordan, the Joe Dumars.
Shouts
not
out to
Jordan
the
Dumars.
turquoise lining on the jerseys.
The teal
man.
era.
Good
Back to
times.
the fiery horse. We need to have that logo back.
Best logo.
I was going to say, we need that bag.
I hope they.
Why have we not done a throwback jersey with the horse?
The Pistons haven't had a throwback jersey in a while. They
Very
might get one
weird.
this year.
That's their
Possible.
problem.
Most intimidating mascot in the league at the time. Maybe.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know.
And I'm rocking the Brandon Knight jersey because Joey was talking a lot of junk about Brandon Knight. So I had to rock the jersey for him. He's coming back this year.
Anybody seen Brandon Knight lately?
Yeah, he's in the gym.
Yeah, me neither.
Whoa.
He's in the gym. He's in the gym, working out for the next year. Let's jump into it though. I want to start with Joey here. We're gonna start with number 10, and then everybody's gonna give their number 10. Then we'll go to 9 and so on and so forth until we get to our number 1 favorite Piston of all time. So Joey, at number 10, favorite Piston of all time. Who is it?
My number 10 is going to be Malik's jersey, Joe Dumars.
Joe D.
You know, I don't get a lot of time to watch him. He was pretty much getting out of the league when I was born. Granted, I was watching basketball since I was basically born. I would sit on the couch with my dad and watch it all the time. So I know of Joe Dumars, and I wouldn't really know him until later in life. And he also gets the number 10 spot because I think he did a good job as the GM, you know, for that great Pistons era.
He did bring a championship. I'll give him that.
He made some good moves.
He did a great job for some years.
I think the back end
For a
of
few
his
years.
management was a little bit rough. But when he first came in and the moves that he made really brought a championship team to Detroit, and that's what I appreciate the most. And obviously, he was a great player for the team. But he's at my number 10 because I don't have a lot of experience watching him overall. It's a lot of highlights and things.
Also, on the Joe Dumars as a front office member, he drafted really well. Everybody remembers Darko Milicic, but outside of Darko, he had some really nice finds. Mehmet Okur, Carlos Delfino. These are just guys in the second round. Tayshaun Prince late in the first. Andre Drummond was a Joe Dumars pick.
Right.
Contavious was solid.
Contavious, Chris Middleton in the second round too, who
Also
is going
Ryan
to get
Anderson.
paid. Yeah, Ryan
Yeah.
Anderson was traded on draft night, but he
Exactly.
still is a Joe Dumars pick.
Right.
He's not in my top 10, spoiler alert, because I didn't watch him play, and the way his tenure ended as a front office member played a role to me, and
Okay.
it soured my taste on him. I still think he's one of the greatest Pistons of all time, but this is our favorite Pistons, not
Right.
the greatest.
Yep.
Anybody want to rock it? Any Joe Dumars comments? Nothing? All right. Jordan rocking the Seattle Supersonics hat too. I like it.
You know it.
They need to
He's
come
a
back
Sox.
very soon.
Yeah, they're coming
They gotta
back.
come back.
They're coming.
Move Sacramento or OKC back.
Did you guys? This is a complete side note here, but the the Warriors are going to play a game in Key Arena in the preseason coming up next year. So KD will be back in Seattle, which will be kind of
What
fun
a
to see.
storyline! I'm sure.
I'm just saying, it'll be fun to see.
All the fans will be out in
I
their
wonder-
Sonics jerseys.
I'm interested to see if, like, Seattle boos or what that whole arena would be like.
If they
but-
booed, that would make zero sense. You left us on accident. Like,
No, but, like, no, it wasn't. Maybe just boo that the NBA took a team away. I don't know. I don't know. Jordan, who you got at number 10, man?
All right, my number 10 pick for favorite Piston is Andre Drummond.
I like the pick.
I was wondering
All
if
right,
somebody
all
chose
right.
Andre.
He's got to crack my top 10 just because he's holding it down right now. And honestly, I love the energy he brings. Like, he's a great player. Like,
He's getting better,
I love
too.
watching him.
Yeah, he's getting better, too. Working on that 3-point shot.
I hope he-
Stop.
Don't shoot the
He's-
three. Don't
Stop
shoot
it.
the three.
He
Thank
said-
you. So, thank you.
I'm
He
glad
said-
we have another backup
Hold on,
here.
though. He said in an interview that he will be shooting threes this season.
Take less than 10.
He can take.
He's
he can
gonna
take
shoot- I
one a
bet
game.
He'll hit a few.
Over under 75, I'm taking the over. I think he
75?
pushed 75
Please
threes.
don't.
I
Come
bet you
on
he shoots.
now.
If he
close to
shoots
100.
over, we're not going to be that fourth seed that
Listen.
you think we're going to be.
What if he's making 35% from three?
He won't
If
be.
he hits 4 out of the first 8 threes he takes, he might shoot 150 threes. He'll become Andre the 3-point shooter.
He'll be
Which
the
would be a
next Josh
nightmare.
Smith.
He's already obsessed with practicing his half court shots. He's gonna.
He's
love
actually
it.
good at
Which,
this.
exactly, which is weird. He's hit
Yeah.
like 4.
Get in the post, man. Work in the post.
I hear ya. No, I like Drummond at 10. I'll go to Malik, see what he's got before I kind of get into Andre a little bit more.
Now, my 10 is a very personal thing.
Oh, gosh.
This is a favorite player of mine. I've brought up a few times, not several times on this show. My number 10 is Carlos Delfino.
Yes,
Number
Carlos
20.
Delfino.
I became a huge Pistons fan around 04, 05. And he got on the team, I think, in 2005, 2006. Every time he came off the bench and got in the game, it seemed like he made a highlight play, whether it was a dunk, whether it was a move going to the lane and a finger roll or something.
Yeah.
He always did something that stood out when he got in the game. And he only played about 8 or 9 minutes a game, but he always did something, and I loved it when he was in the game. So,
Delfino was
Carlos Delfino, one of my favorites.
he was
Bright spot.
he was one of those really like those corner marksmen from three.
Oh, yeah.
Him and Mo Evans, I remember those are the two guys I'd love to see coming off the bench, hitting the 3 balls in the corner.
And if
I'll-
he jumped and you let him drive to the rim, he would dunk on you.
yeah,
which
he
is
had
even better.
he had some surprising athleticism. Joe, you got anything on Carlos? Nothing. You're not a
I
Carlos
like the guy. He was a great role player, but he was never like that guy that I was excited to see. At least, definitely not to be in my top 10 at least.
I understand it.
But
I understand it.
And granted, I've been watching the Pistons since the early 90s, so there's a lot more
way to age yourself, there,
people
Joe.
to go through that I would like have to think about, and there's no way that Carlos Delfino can make my top 10.
But you were never a fan of like a spark plug off the bench. To
No,
make
I
your
definitely
top
was.
10?
I used to love.
Joe
What
is a
about
big-
the Zoo Crew?
Joe is a big Mike James fan.
Yeah. What about the
He's
No,
come
I
off the
actually
bench
didn't
and
like
run
Mike
the-
James.
Big Tony Delk guy.
Yes.
I like
Double
the
zero.
like Darvin Ham, guys like Corliss Williamson.
What about Jason McSeal?
You like
Amir
Darvin, but you
Johnson?
don't like Carlos.
yeah.
That's
Darvin
true.
Darvin had one good dunk every
I know, but-
3 weeks.
Well, that was just exciting to me.
It was.
Yeah, I like the pick though. You're not shying away from a bench player, and that's good to see. My number 10, I'm going with Jordan here. I had Andre Drummond. He was my number 10. He,
Sure.
like Jordan said, he's holding it down. He's been with the Pistons for 6 years now. He's developed as a star, and really the only star that I've seen the Pistons develop since they went into their terrible basketball. But he's a 2-time All-Star, 1-time All-NBA. He'll probably break the rebound record held by Bill Laimbeer, break the block record held by Ben Wallace if
Mm,
he spends his career in Detroit.
okay, that's possible.
And I think that's possible too because Gorse absolutely loves the guy, and I'm sure he'll throw another max contract at him when his contract's over.
Unfortunately,
You're on the Andre hate train, man.
I don't
My
hate him.
goodness.
No, I don't hate him. I've
We
said
mi-
it multiple times. I feel like his value is so high right now that we could get something for
We
him.
might have to mute this out, all this hate though, if we ever want Andre on the show. Like,
It's not
come on,
hate.
man.
I'd love to talk to the guy.
I'm on Joey's side. I couldn't put him on my list either.
Yeah, I mean,
Couldn't put
Oh,
Andre
he was
on my
close.
list.
I'll be honest. He was close, but
and I'm not sure if we'll have time to get into our honorable mentions, but for me, it was such a big deal. I do want to bring it up here. It was between Andre and Marcus Morris. I had Marcus Morris at number 11 because he had that Detroit attitude.
right.
Oh, yeah.
He brought it every night, and he reminded me a little bit of Rasheed Wallace, and it was something the Pistons needed.
Yeah, and they haven't had it in a long time.
And I was really bummed when they traded him. I was really upset. He was only here for what, a year, 2 years?
yeah,
2 years.
I think 2 years.
Yeah, and I was just it was a bumming blow to see Marcus leave. He's doing well in Boston though. Moving on, number 9, Joe.
All right, number 9. I'm sticking with that same vibe that I had last. I'm going with Zeke. I'm going with Isaiah
What?
Thomas.
What?
I know I didn't again.
What?
Again, I didn't get to watch him a whole lot, but just being able to watch highlights and seeing what that man
Incredible.
did, and more so of hearing like stories of my dad watching the team, so it's more of a nostalgia factor. For my dad to tell me all the stories about watching Isaiah Thomas and how good he was back then, and from seeing video and limited experience, I didn't want to necessarily put him on the list because I didn't get to really watch him. But I don't know how you just leave him off any Pistons list, honestly, almost.
I just don't understand how he's at 9, even if you didn't get the opportunity to watch him too much, like especially live. Like you said, you watched highlights though. I'm sure you watched the Bad Boys documentary as well.
Right.
He brought 2 championships
Yes.
to your favorite franchise.
Right. He's probably the best Piston of all time.
He's the best Piston of all time. You've seen the highlights. Yes, you haven't watched him
Right.
live. He brought 2 championships to the Motor City.
Yep.
Probably should have a statue outside of Little Caesars Arena.
Right.
Yet he's number 9 on your list.
Because I take into the account of being able to see these guys in person and living more through certain players' eras. And since I didn't get to be a part of that era, that's why he's at the end of my list. That's why Joe Dumars and Isaiah Thomas are at the end of my list, because I didn't get to experience them in person.
I can understand Joe Dumars just for the fact that he wasn't in the stature of an Isaiah Thomas. And he kind of ended poorly. Are you guys surprised by the Isaiah Thomas at 9 for Joey? Or is it just me?
What
do you mean?
I understand. I get where he's coming from, but he's too good of a player to leave him that low on the list.
That's what I'm saying.
I'm just
He's
taking
the
in,
greatest Piston of all time.
but I take into
But
account
this is
of what I've
this is a personal list.
right.
I understand.
Your
I didn't get to
favorites.
live through that. Like if I was a few years older and I got to live through 88, 89 championship, 89, 90
He'd
championship.
be number 1 on all of our lists.
Yes, it would be no doubt easy. But I didn't get to watch him in real life, and there's more players that I'm more personally involved with that I enjoyed.
Let me ask
to
you a
watch.
question here. Are you proud to be a Pistons fan? Do you take pride in it because it's a storied franchise?
Not in the last 10 years.
Okay, but they're a storied franchise. Would you agree with that?
Mm-hmm.
They're one of the top 7 to top 8 franchises in the NBA.
Yes, just
No
because
doubt.
they have 3 championships.
And who brought 2 of those? Zeke. I don't know. All right, I'm giving you too much crap here, Joe. But
We'll get into it later.
I
about
had to bring
the
it
guys
up.
above him.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
I
That
guess
might paint a
my next one will be the controversial one then.
I was gonna say that'll paint a better picture for us where we can dissect your list. Jordan, who you got at number 9?
All right, my number 9. I didn't get to see him play very much since he was early 2000s, late 90s. My
Mhm.
man Jerry Stackhouse.
Jerry Stackhouse. Yeah, I was,
Man can flat out
Yeah.
score.
and he had a
Didn't
good.
he average 30 once here?
Oh yeah,
Yeah, he
did.
It was
He was
He
up
was
there.
a problem.
Unreal.
Yeah.
Whatever
Yeah.
happened to Jerry? How come he just kind of fell? I feel like he just fell off the face of the earth. From
I think it
being
might have
such
been.
a
I think it
dynamic
might have been
scorer.
injuries
I
because
think
he
he
just became
another-
he just became a knockdown 3-point shooter later.
Yeah,
in
his
career.
athleticism kind of took a step back.
Yep.
I think
Um,
he got a bad knee injury, and then once
yeah.
he went to Dallas, just
It was more of him being like a perimeter shooter.
definitely.
Yeah, Jerry, he was up there for me in consideration. He didn't crack my top 10 just because I never watched him play. I've seen highlights, but he didn't bring anything to Detroit. He didn't,
Exactly.
and he wasn't that superstar level that a Grant Hill was. So that's why Jerry didn't make the cut for me. But I like the pick. Stackhouse, a dynamic scorer, one of the best scorers in
Pistons history.
Pistons history. Yeah.
It has to be.
Malik, number 9.
I don't know if this is controversial or not. Everybody's going back in the past. I'm pretty much sticking with the era I watched Pistons basketball in. My number 9 is Antonio McDyess.
I like it.
Oh.
Mick Dice almost made it for me too.
He was consistently good. How long was he here? 5 years?
Yeah, it was
4
5.
or 5 years?
It was 5.
Something like that.
Yeah, he was always good. Very good mid-range shooter, good defender. You could always trust on Antonio McDyess when you put him in the game. I don't ever remember him really having nagging injuries. He always played
Well, after his terrible injury in
Oh,
Denver,
yeah.
that's because he was a dynamic athlete with
Yeah.
Denver. It was like former number 1 overall pick.
Yeah, he was close to
be-
being a
yeah.
star.
Yeah.
He became a different player when he was in Detroit. But
Yep.
he was always a trustworthy
He was
player.
consistent. Yeah, he was consistent in Detroit.
I'm never down on Antonio McDyess. I've never heard anything bad said
No,
about him
not
as
at
a
all.
player.
And
He did his job and he did it well.
the funny thing about Antonio is the thing that stands out for me the most when it comes to McDyess is his jump shot where he drifts to the side a little bit every time. It was just so unique. His fadeaway off to the side, and him and Rashid partnered up front, especially after Big Ben left, and they still were relevant because Nazir Mohammed was a train wreck when they tried to bring him in and try to fill Ben Wallace's void with Nazir Mohammed. That was so
Yeah.
bad. That was not good.
Yeah. Not much to say about that.
Yeah, there's really not much more to talk about. But yeah, Antonio McDyess, solid pick. I mean, it's your favorite. It's kind of just who you really like to watch. So,
He was on my honorable mention as well.
Same.
yep, same here. My number 9, I'm getting into the going to work Pistons already. Tayshaun Prince, number
Wow.
9 for me.
Wow.
He's the lesser of the group of that starting 5.
But to put
He's
the
number
man
5.
that committed the most time to this team
Stayed the longest.
all the way down in number 9,
He wasn't contributing much at the end there, Joe.
I'm happy he's on your list.
he's stuck there.
I'm happy he made the list because if he didn't, I might have had some
I will,
problems.
you know,
Yeah, we'd have some
Yeah.
issues.
my first draft, he almost didn't make it because
Oh,
I didn't
that
want to
would've
have
been
I
bad.
didn't want to have all 5 because I thought I was going too heavy on the going to work Pistons and I wanted some variety, but I
Can
had
never
to
be
keep
too
them on there.
heavy on that.
Exactly.
Fair enough, fair enough. But I wasn't able to watch it, but I mean, you see all the highlights, the iconic block on Reggie Miller. I mean, what more can you say about that? The dude
Greatest
comes-
block of all time. Don't at me.
Where's
No debate.
does LeBron's block?
No. There's no debate.
Does that come at number 2 though?
Maybe. It doesn't matter.
I think it's up there for me because,
If you're not first, you're last.
but that LeBron block was to win
Honestly,
a
I don't know if
championship.
it's the greatest, but it's top 5 to me. The situation, the difficulty, it's
That block is
it's,
to
it's
me
unbelievable.
is the best defensive play
You've
in
ever seen.
Pistons history.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
I agree with that. Yeah, I agree
Oh,
with
yeah.
that completely, 100%. Yeah, like you said, he was the longest tenured Piston. I mean, 4 times all defense, and it makes you wonder though. Having Tayshaun here, we drafted him in what 02.
Yep.
I wonder if since Joe Dumars drafted Tayshaun, if that weighed on Dumars' decision to pick Darko over Melo, knowing he had Tayshaun Prince to fall back on.
Probably.
It probably did because Tayshaun, he surprised his rookie year.
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
played good in the playoffs. I'm pretty sure nobody expected him to play as good as he did at first. So.
And for the time, we were looking for that complimentary guy to go with Ben Wallace. And Darko was supposed
That stretch
a
big.
shooter back in the day.
Yeah.
So
That's
that's
the only downside, I think. I mean, it's all what ifs, but
maybe.
yeah, what if Carmelo Anthony was a Piston? How would his career have turned out instead of what it is now, taking a vet minimum to go play with Houston? It's crazy. All right, Joey, number 8. What you got?
All right, here comes the controversial and my one and only Sad Boys era Piston in the whole group. And it took me a lot of time to figure out who I was going to go with. And only because he stayed around and then he came back and he retired as a Piston after all that time, I got to give my boy credit, Jason Maxiell.
I'm not mad at that.
No, I like
At all.
I can't.
For
Career
a favorites list, I
career
like that.
average maybe 5 points per
Wait,
game.
He didn't come back to the Pistons.
Well, to retire.
Oh, yeah.
He signed.
He signed a day
Yeah, yeah.
contract, yeah.
But he is that spark plug that you get off the bench. He wasn't the craziest player out there. He was, what they list him at, 6'8"?
He was not 6'8". That dude was
Everybody
like
says that he
6'5".
was probably 6'5.5", and he guarded every position basically. He guarded these big guys. He would get blocks. He was super athletic.
I never understood how athletic he was for how big he was.
right.
Yeah.
How high he could jump for how
Yeah,
Well,
he was
it
a
was
bulky
insane.
dude, and he was just strong.
he
and
was so
like,
powerful.
some of his dunks and some of his blocks, like I said, he never averaged very much. His career high is probably super low,
But he was always a bench player, though.
but he was
never-
just always that spark plug off the bench, and he was exciting to watch, and that's something that I enjoy.
Do you guys remember? I mean, the most vivid play to me that Jason Maxiell made was when New Orleans. I think I remember was playing in Detroit. Chris Paul throws a lob to Tyson, and Jason
Oh,
Nexiel
yeah.
absolutely
blocks him.
swats
That's
him.
one of the best timed blocks I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was
He-
absolutely.
that's on
As soon as
Yeah.
Tyson caught it,
He was
right.
there.
Yeah, it was amazing.
Yep.
Yeah, he was part of the Zoo Crew too. If you guys remember the Zoo Crew back in like the
I do not remember
the
Zoo
06
Crew.
the 06, 07 era.
I try to forget about that.
That was that was the nickname for that bench guy. It was Aaron Aflalo, Flip Murray, Jason Mexiel, Amir Johnson. That was the Zoo Crew. It was
Young Amir Johnson.
Yeah,
Wow.
like Chauncey and Rashid. That's what they would call him, and it was just funny. It always stuck with me too. Jordan, number 8.
My number 8 is the Prince of the Palace, Tayshaun Prince.
I mean, Jordan and I we're
Yeah, you
pretty
guys are pretty
similar right
close.
now.
I couldn't give him too high on the list because he was the least contributing.
That's
out
what I'm
of the-
saying.
Out
Yeah,
of
he
the
was-
5,
Yeah, you're not gonna have.
but he had to make the list, and he's easily top 8.
Yeah.
No, I agree with that. But there was just something about Tayshaun that, don't get me wrong, he won us a championship, but it was just something that was, I feel like, unlikable. You know?
What?
Unlikable.
He guarded the best player on the other team
Why?
every
Because
time.
he was quiet.
He didn't guard LeBron
He
in the
didn't say
48-point
much.
game. I'll tell you what.
Nobody was guarding LeBron in the 48-point
The one
game.
thing that I remember is Tayshaun Prince like shying away when LeBron was going for a dunk. Like, I remember I was so upset. I was like, Tayshaun, you're supposed to be one of the best defensive players, defensive wings. At least go
Nobody
up and try
could
to
do that. Nobody was jumping with LeBron at that time.
That was-
I
if he
understand.
tried,
He could have tried though. Show some effort. Not shy
he had
away.
Ben Wallace and Rashid in the paint.
No, Ben
They
wasn't
moved
there.
out the
Ben
way.
wasn't there.
Ben wasn't there.
No,
Yeah,
no, Ben was
not at
gone.
that point.
Rashid was in the paint.
LeBron ain't doing that if Big Ben's in the paint.
Nobody stood in the way.
The reason he's
Remember
the
what he
least,
did to Kobe. Remember that.
The reason he's my least favorite out of the 5, he didn't have the offensive game either. He could,
Yeah.
I mean, he could knock down
Ah.
a shot here or there.
I
Pump
think he had
fake.
an underrated offensive game. Personally,
But I mean, he pump fake, dribbled to the basket. What underrated offensive game? Expand on that opinion there, Malik.
when Tayshaun got his chance, and he didn't get it a lot, I feel like he's had some really good offensive games before, but because he played his role,
His
And
corner,
he-
his corner 3
yeah.
was great.
he played his role, and he was fine playing that role. He didn't want to step out and be the 20-point per game scorer, which I think he could have been a few times in his career.
I disagree with that. I don't think he could score 20. But
I've seen
still
him
think
go
he's
on
underrated.
scoring bursts doing several different things.
Yeah, if
We'll
you look-
never know.
Especially if you look at his college highlights. I know it's totally different from the NBA, but his college highlights, he had some
Yeah.
crazy games.
all right, Malik, number 8.
My number 8 is the only player from the past 10 years, and it's Tobias Harris.
Tobias, really?
Wow,
Tobias
that is a
Harris.
surprise.
That's a surprise to me.
No Pistons player has brought me more joy to watch than Tobias Harris in the past 10 years.
Really?
He was so smart. He played good defense. He was a knockdown shoot. He was the best three-point shooter in the league before he got traded away, percentage-wise. He was barely missing for the Pistons last year. To me, he was their best player. He was averaging 22 a game
Yeah.
for the Pistons before he got traded. I have nothing down to say about Tobias at any point he played with the Pistons. He was the bright point of the past 2 years for the Pistons to me. Even with Andre averaging 16 rebounds last year,
Yeah.
Tobias was the reason why they were close to making the playoffs as much as they were the past 2 years.
No, Tobias made a huge jump last year.
I
and
loved watching him play.
Yeah, he struggled a little bit when he came from Orlando, but he kept improving. And the dude, you had no off the court issues with Tobias Harris. He was about his business, and he just went about it. It was a bum. It was. I was bummed that he had to be part of the deal for Blake Griffin. But if I'm going side by side, who's the better player and what player would I rather have? I'm picking Blake Griffin.
I didn't know how to feel about the trade at the time.
I understand.
When I found out Tobias was a part of the trade, it hurt my heart. It really did. I was okay with anything going except for Tobias because I felt like he was the one thing that was keeping that team going at that time.
Yeah. I mean, I like Tobias too, but he's just in that group where, he was only here for 2 years, and it's
2.5,
unfortunate.
yeah.
I think
Or even it was 2 years.
I would have liked to have him for more, but I never got to develop that emotional
I mean, you only had one.
connection to him.
And you only had like 4 games in the
Yeah.
playoffs. And I feel like playoff games plays a huge role in everybody's favorites because that's when you're most intense with your players.
I think it was because it's been so hard for me to watch the Pistons the past 10 years.
Yeah.
It's been
Why-
hard, but I've watched all of it.
He gave me a reason to kind of have hope in the team. Seeing him play as good as he played.
Now, let me ask you this, Malik. I understand that he's your favorite player, or one of your favorite players. Straight up, would you trade Tobias for Blake Griffin again?
Give me a minute. To
All
think
right,
about
we'll
that.
come back to you.
Blake is a great talent, but
He's a top 20 player in the NBA.
yes.
You would do it? Yeah. All right.
I don't know if I give up everything else.
Yeah,
though.
yeah, that's what I'm
That
not.
man,
I'm just saying player
that was a
player
runaway
comparison.
Yeah, that was such a steal for the Clippers.
And I think it'll be interesting to see who was number 12. Was it Shai Gilgeous-Alexander at number 12?
Shai Gilgeous and
Or no, it was Miles
Robinson
Bridges.
from Boston College.
It was Miles Bridges
Okay,
that went
yeah.
number 12.
Maybe.
So it'll be interesting to see if Miles turns out to be a star, how bad that trade actually was for the Pistons. But we won't find out until down the road. My number 8, my point guard, Reggie Jackson.
Oh, boy.
No comment.
I mean,
I'll give you that 1 year. I rode for
That-
Reggie so hard that 1 year when they made the playoffs. He
was-
played out of
yeah,
his mind.
He was
That
the
first
leader.
round against the Cavs.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
And I wonder how his career turns out if he doesn't get the knee issues. Because
That's a great question. He was
He was
heading
coming
towards an all-star reserve to me because he averaged about 20, 21 that year.
he won player of the month in that 15-16 season where it was him, the best player in the Eastern Conference for the month of November, and then Stephen Curry. And I was like, oh my gosh, we have like one of the best point guards
He was
in the Eastern
playing at a high
Conference.
level. He really was.
Yeah, and injuries have derailed his career.
You got to admit that, Joey.
Joey's a Brandon
What do I
Jennings
have to
guy,
admit?
so-
That year, Reggie Jackson was playing at a high level. He really was.
I
still won't
really
admit it.
don't remember it, to be honest. To completely honest.
Really?
Yeah.
What do you remember from that team that made the playoffs?
You don't remember the one
we
playoff
went
year
to
we've
the
had?
we went to the playoff game and they lost. That's
did.
all I remember.
He did make some mental errors in that
Oh, he
Cavs
did.
sweep.
Yeah,
Playing hero ball
that-
is one
that's
of
a-
his problems.
that's a big
Yeah, a
downfall.
Mhm.
His IQ.
Go on, Chris. What other positives
The
do you
subtle
have
shots fired.
This is Chris's-
His IQ
This is Chris'
bad.
pick though. So.
about our point guard?
Hour.
I mean, he's going into his 4th season. I think this year is huge for him, especially when it comes to how his tenure as a Piston will be remembered. If they make the playoffs this year, he's not going to be the motor of this team like he was in 15-16, but if he can be that third complementary piece to Blake and Andre, Bullock takes another step this year. Kennard, what's the smiling for?
He's just-
Joey's just giving me this
he's-
look as I'm.
He's just that typical. He's an all right player on a bad team.
I think he gets a bad rap. I think Reggie really does.
I don't think so.
I compare the way most people I know who don't like Reggie Jackson at all, and I compare him to how people felt about Matt Stafford a few years ago. People in Detroit hated Matt Stafford,
I
and
still
I
don't
always
like Stafford.
he's
And I
been-
like Stafford.
he's a good.
still
He is a
can't stand
quality
Stafford.
quarterback still. He's still playing good.
Reggie,
but
when he-
people,
I agree.
I'm kind of down on Reggie now, but it's a solid comparison. People didn't like Matt Stafford. People don't like Reggie Jackson. Even when Reggie was playing good, people were like, he's still a backup. But
Because he made dumb decisions,
he did. Sometimes.
even when he's playing pretty
Yeah.
good.
Reggie is
Go ahead.
a quality player on a potential playoff team. It's Eastern Conference, it's wide open. You can't say
Yes.
they're
I'm not
for
saying
sure.
it's not.
Yeah, exactly. If he stays healthy, I think he can bounce back to that 15 points per game, 5 assists, 4 rebounds
those
on a
assists up.
playoff team.
Get those assists up.
Well, Blake's gonna handle the ball.
He doesn't
more,
have
that's
to be
why.
the main scorer anymore.
Blake's gonna average like 6 assists next year, in my opinion.
He probably
but-
will.
And that's another thing too. Blake Griffin. If we do this again next year, top 10 favorite Pistons, Blake probably joins that category if he has a solid year because I think he's heading towards another All-Star appearance.
Not yet.
No.
All right, we'll see.
He
We'll
just
see
doesn't
what-
gotta get
I'll
hurt.
see.
2 years in, not
I-
too quick.
I'll
I-
gauge your opinions on him next year. We'll see.
I mean, I think he'll be okay. I'm just saying I won't have that emotional connection to him in 2 years. I don't think
You don't
to
think
break
you
into
don't
like
know.
the top 10 or anything.
If he can take us to the second round in the playoffs,
I think that
he
plays-
makes my top.
That's
10.
what I'm saying. Yeah. I agree with that. All right, Joey. What is it? Moving on to number 7 for you. I know Reggie Jackson. Is he in your top 7, Joe?
I don't think he's in my top 25 to be
What you
completely
got?
honest.
The disrespect.
So my number 7 is more of an era that I've lived through. I was still really young when it happened, but my number 7 is Jerry Stackhouse. The old horsies, the great mascot for the Pistons.
Nice
Malik
jersey,
is
Malik.
rocking.
Nice. Yeah.
Jerry Stackhouse, one of the greatest scorers for the Pistons ever. Just an electric player, exciting to watch. Wore the number 42. That's a number in my family. That's a number my dad wore. I wore number 24, but I don't know. Something about it, draws me to him, and he's exciting. And
Did you see a little bit of your game in his game?
no,
Oh, okay. I just don't
Nope.
know.
I'll
Not
be
at all.
real. I'll be real with
No.
you. No,
Joe, if you had to compare your high school playing days, what Piston would you compare
high school
it to?
high school playing
What
days.
would you compare it to?
Pistons.
Kyle
Piston.
Singler, 100%.
Kyle Singler.
No, stop.
Just so you guys know, Kyle Singer is Joey's favorite player, but he didn't want to put him on the list.
No. I don't
If he
think
had
so.
the athleticism, I'd say Jonas Jerebko. But Kyle.
Whatever Piston sat in the corner and shot threes.
Mo Evans, Carlos Delfino, one of those guys. Carlos probably put the ball on the floor a little bit more than
I'll upgrade you to John Lure.
you.
I help
You
John
got
Lure.
Gigi Jatomi, but
Ooh,
he didn't
Gigi
get to
Datome.
play.
Yeah, Gigi
Oh.
Datome. Yeah, Jerry Stackhouse, I mean, like we talked about before, right? He's one of those guys that if you didn't watch him play live or you weren't getting into the Pistons until like 2005, 2006, you're probably not putting him in your top 10. And
Right.
that's like me. I didn't put him in my top 10 because he didn't bring anything of significance to Detroit, and I didn't watch him live. He was an amazing athlete, amazing scorer, like you've touched upon. I mean, over 30 points per game 1 year in Detroit. It's just not for me,
Yep. And it
Most
was another
kids-
one of those sad boy kind of eras for
Yeah.
the Pistons at that time too.
Let's not compare that era to the Sad Boy era. The Sad Boy era is one in its own.
True.
Most kids today don't know about Jerry Stackhouse, and that's kind of
Yeah.
sad. They have no idea.
Right.
A lot of kids probably don't know who he is,
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
true.
but they don't know how good he used to be
Right.
if they know him.
One of the most underrated scorers of all time.
Yeah.
I think.
Jordan,
Yeah,
what you got?
he actually, fun fact, holds a scoring record in the United Center, where Michael Jordan plays basketball.
Wow.
Just had to bring that up.
Interesting.
Regular season scoring record.
Fun facts.
Fun
Chris.
facts.
Fun fact.
Jordan, what you got?
All right, my number 7. It's the first bad boy on my list, but I got
If you-
Rick Mahorn.
Okay, I was gonna.
I completely respect that. 100%.
Rick was in
gotta
my top
respect Rick.
15.
He did all the dirty work.
Hate playing against him, love playing with him.
Did all the dirty work. He'd fight you if he had to. Man,
He'd
was-
fight you if you didn't have to.
Yeah, he was. I mean, I feel bad for him too, getting taken in the expansion draft.
That
only
was-
getting
yeah.
one
That's a
ring.
sad story.
And I mean, that happened the day they were doing their championship
Yep.
celebration.
And-
too.
Yep.
That's terrible.
And he loves Detroit. He's still around the arena all the time. He's always going to games.
He's,
always everywhere.
He's the radio color analyst
Yep.
for the Detroit Pistons. Yeah, he loves everything about Detroit.
He's blue collar. He's everything about Detroit basketball.
I really like that pick. You guys anything you want to chime in on Rick Mahorn?
Him and Bill Lambier. I don't understand how they got away with half of the stuff they used to do.
Different
in the
NBA, man.
80s. It was a different NBA, but man,
The
the
sc-
clotheslines, they would smile at you and punch you in the chest and then step over you like, wow, this is what a time it used to be.
his screen on
Huh.
Mo Cheeks that he set on the fast break at half
I remember
court
that.
knocked
Almost
him
killed him.
unconscious.
Yeah.
Oh, my
Almost killed
goodness.
him.
Watching the Bad Boys special really makes you fall in love with Rick Mahorn, honestly.
Most definitely.
Shows you the grit and the grime that he had. Again, I didn't get to make the emotional connection because I didn't get to watch him. Obviously, he's up there and one of the greatest Pistons of all time, just for the fact that, like Jordan said, he's so involved in this organization that always plays a big factor, I think.
Malik, number 7.
My number 7 will probably be controversial because it's kind of low on my list. I have Rasheed Wallace as my number 7.
You have Rasheed at number 7.
Oh,
Yes.
boy.
Yikes.
Wow.
Rasheed Wallace is my number 7.
At least he's on the list. He's got to be on the
Made the
list.
list.
Oh yeah, he's on the list. I love him. He's on that championship team. He came in that year
I'm
and
offended.
instantly made an impact. The Wallace brothers, Ben and Rasheed. I mean, what else can you say? All-star player, extremely talented. The ball don't lie.
That's one of my.
Technicals.
The new age Bill and Rick Mahorn.
You know, the Pistons really need to establish a sound effect whenever a player misses a free throw
Ball don't
at
lie.
LCA. Ball don't lie every time. That'd be
But
hilarious.
The reason why I have him at 7 is because he was the first to leave.
Was he? No, he
No,
wasn't.
Ben Wallace left.
Ben left.
I thought Rasheed was the
No,
first.
no,
to
No,
leave.
Ben
Rasheed-
Law.
I thought
Rasheed
she
stuck
went to the
through it.
Celtics first, and then
No, Sheed went to the Celtics in 2009.
Yeah.
oh,
Because
Ben
Ben left
left
for his
for
max
Chicago.
deal.
Yeah. Sheed stuck through it, man.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because we couldn't give.
Because
She
they
was
paired
actually-
they paired him and McDice together.
Rip was the last one to leave.
Rashid was the center
Well,
for a long time.
He's still on my list. Sorry, happy you
Fair
corrected
enough.
me on that
No,
one.
no
All
problem.
good.
But like I said, extremely skilled, 6'11", heart of a lion.
Yeah.
Yeah, great player. Really good.
My number 7 is Bill Laimbeer, the old school Rasheed Wallace. I mean, he was that first
Wow.
stretch big, one of the first big men to stretch the floor and shoot threes back in the late 80s, early 90s. And he shot it like at a 35% clip, I think, at his best season. 4-time All-Star. I mean, helped bring 2 championships to Detroit. And he was, I mean, and I know it's not the Pistons, but he brought some championships with the Detroit Shock, too, as a WNBA head coach.
He might be the most hated player in Pistons history. There was no likable factor about Bill Laimbeer whatsoever.
I think
For
Isaiah-
people
even-
outside of
But
Detroit.
even the way he just
Yeah.
talked to people, he just came off as a cocky,
Right.
yeah.
Arrogant dude.
No, for sure. All right, number 6, Joe.
I'm going with the other 90s era Pistons, the nice teal. One of the saddest stories in the NBA, Grant Hill.
I'm with
Number
you on
6.
that. I mean, he's my number 6 too.
He's my cousin Steve's favorite player of all time. Steve's a couple years older than I am, so he really got to live through this era. And Grant Hill is one of the greatest Pistons that could have been, unfortunately.
He's one of the
Easily.
greatest
Easily.
players that could have been.
Yes. One of the greatest players of all
He's
time.
in the category with Penny Hardaway. And, yeah.
Right.
I
He's
completely
in that,
agree with that.
injury riddled, ruined his career. I think in the second half of his career, he kind of made a comeback with the Suns and that. He became a nice spot up shooter, but
I mean, he was
he could have been so much better.
in his best season. He was averaging 26, 6, and 5.
Right. And
And-
again, pairing him with Jerry Stackhouse was such an electric backcourt. And it was so exciting to watch. Again, I was pretty young when they were around, but I still got to enjoy them playing together. And obviously, he's just such a talent.
And he was also that first face of the Pistons post Bad Boys era.
Right.
And kind of brought fans back to watching the Detroit Pistons because they're, like you said, there was a little bit of a lull in that period of time where people were kind of tuning out Detroit. And Grant Hill brought that back. He's really the only superstar the Pistons have ever had outside of an Isaiah Thomas. And Blake Griffin's probably the first star the Pistons have had that compares to a Grant Hill. I'm not saying he's as great as Grant Hill, but the first star to come to Detroit like Grant Hill. Jordan, who you got at 6?
My 6 is Isaiah Thomas.
Wow.
Because
That's better than 9.
I couldn't put him too high because, like Joey said, I didn't live through it.
Fair
Didn't
enough.
see too much, but obviously he was the heart of that team.
Yeah.
Brought 2 championships.
Yeah.
My dad's favorite Piston. Yeah.
Malik?
My number 6?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. My number 6 is Rip Hamilton,
You know,
the legendary face mask.
Yikes.
One of the most underrated shooters in NBA history. One of
Sheet
the
at
best free throw
7.
shooters in NBA history.
what'd you say?
Sheet at 7, Rip at 6.
Yeah.
Oh, Tayshaun at 9? 10?
No, I haven't said
He
Tayshaun.
hasn't
Oh, okay.
I had Tayshaun at 9.
Jeez.
But
All right.
like I said, one of the most underrated shooters ever. One of the best free throw shooters ever. His stamina is out of this world. I don't understand how he could run
Clay
around
Thompson
like that.
before Clay Thompson.
Mid-range version, yes.
Yeah, mid-range version.
If you left him open for mid-range, it was
Towards the end of
automatic.
his career,
Yeah.
though, I think he became a pretty darn good three-point
Yeah,
shooter.
he was a good three-point shooter.
he was nowhere to the extent of a Klay Thompson.
Right. But he has that same
Yeah.
style.
And Rip would run to the corners too. He went corners and wings. He would never really shoot as many threes on the top of the key. But yeah.
Really one of the last players like him. One of those players that I don't think anybody in today's NBA really runs that hard around screens and tries that. Kyle Korver, maybe. He might be one of the last dudes that he used to, if he doesn't anymore.
Rip used to run like 4 to 5 miles almost every day.
But I think
They
Korver,
That's why I
talk
said
about.
his stamina is unbelievable to
Yeah.
me. How hard he ran
Yeah, and
to
nobody-
get open for a shot and still be calm enough
Right.
and practice to is incredible.
and to back up Malik, I do agree that Kyle Korver is probably the closest to him. I'm not saying he is.
Atlanta
he does.
Kyle Korver more.
Yeah, and he doesn't run as much as Rip Hamilton.
But he
but if
ran
you're
as
gonna
hard.
But if you're gonna pick a player in today's NBA, Korver would be my closest to him. I mean, I think Rip and Reggie are in a class of their own when it comes to running off the ball. Nobody does it better. But yeah, Rip Hamilton, what do you say, at number 6? Solid pick. My number 6 was Grant Hill too. I'm not gonna get too much into it because we kind of went through it, but watch him as much live on television. That's what knocked him down for me.
Right.
Number 5, Joe.
Number 5, here we go. Tayshaun Prince is my number 5.
Okay.
He, super exciting, defensive-minded. Yes, he could knock down the three, but that's what he wasn't used for. He was go get the best player on the opposite team. You saw him lock down Kobe in the finals. He would always have to guard the greatest players. He stopped LeBron for a long time up until 2007.
Until he became
Until the worst game in Pistons history.
But then
became LeBron.
that's when LeBron transcended,
yeah.
and it's unfortunate for Tayshaun to be a part of that. But
I mean, LeBron's in LA now. Who cares?
and Tayshaun with the greatest the block herd around the world, as they call it, on Reggie Miller to save them in that 2004 playoff series. He just did all the dirty work, and you got to give him credit for sticking with the team for so long. And he's another one of those guys that he enjoys every time he comes back. So,
yeah,
Tayshaun Prince, definitely number 5.
Jordan, who you got at 5?
Joey's gonna hate me for this.
Uh-oh.
Mr. Big Shot.
Chauncey at
Wow.
5.
Hot takes.
But I kind of
Hot takes.
already braced myself for this. I've lived with this kid for a
I
long
could-
time, so
I
I know
can't-
what his opinions
Number
are.
five.
I
Chauncey.
can't
The
put my
explanation for
brother's.
this.
I can't put my brother's favorite player.
I hear ya.
He can't be my favorite.
No, for sure. You got to have
And
some diversity.
He
there.
is one of he's easily one of the greatest point guards.
Yeah.
You can't put in
He's-
words what he means to this
Yeah,
franchise.
he's amazing.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I mean,
One of the most underrated point guards of all time.
I mean, he was only, I think, a 3-time All-Star or no, 3-time All-Star with the Pistons.
First ballot Hall
He was
of Famer.
5-time He was a 5-time All-Star his entire career, but only 3 times with Detroit. Malik, who you got at number 5?
Great minds think alike. Number 5, Tayshaun Prince.
Oh,
There we go.
So underappreciated. Like he said, the defensive ability. I really didn't. Like he said, Tayshaun's offensive abilities were kind of limited. I didn't know how much better he was until I went back and watched some of his highlights a few years ago as a Piston. The scoring burst he would have. He had a game in his rookie year in the playoffs. I think it was against Philadelphia, where he scored like 12 or 14 straight in the fourth quarter, and they just kept feeding him the ball in the post. He had a different move every time they gave him the ball. Team USA gold medalist. I'm still happy to this day he made that team.
If you look up Tayshaun Prince and his, I kind of glossed over it before, but if you look up Tayshaun Prince, it's like one of his first games for Kentucky. He scored the first 20-some points for his team. It's amazing. You should check it out.
yeah, I've seen it. Yeah, no,
It's
no, I know
crazy.
what you're talking
He
about.
definitely cut back a lot of his ability because of the team he was on, and
Right.
that I respect him even more for that because he knew he had a job to do and he did it great at all times, and it led to a championship. So, Tayshaun at 5.
like it. You guys are probably not gonna like me though for this. Ben Wallace at number 5 for me.
Oh,
What took a
Yikes.
big
That
toll?
hits me hard.
Well, what took a toll for me for Ben Wallace is
Oh.
that he was the first to leave.
he has
Leaving
the
for-
actual
and,
case.
and
Yeah.
he left
Actual.
for Chicago
Right.
of all places. It's better than Cleveland, but Chicago.
And he left for the money.
yeah, he did it
and
for the, in
he
the
did
way
it for the
did
money.
Yeah.
I understand he had an issue with Flip Saunders. He didn't like the way he would take him out at the end of games, and that played a huge role in Ben's decision to change teams. But to me, if you're going to be one of the greatest Pistons of all time, an ambassador for the Pistons, you fight through the hard times. And he did that for so long until he hit a breaking point and was offered a ton of money, and I can't blame him for taking it. But to me, it'll just knock him down a notch when it comes to my favorite Pistons of all time. I mean, 4-time All-Star, 4-time Defensive Player of the Year, greatest defender in Pistons history.
Yeah.
Joey, number 4.
Number 4, I'm going to flip-flop of what my brother just did. I'm going to put Rip Hamilton at number 4. The guy was electric. He wouldn't stop moving, like Malik said. The Pistons having Chauncey and Rip, again, is one of the most underrated backcourts of all time as well. They played defense. They played offense. Rip was the guy to go to. I know Chauncey was Mr. Big Shot, but Rip was that consistent scorer every time. Pretty much almost always led the team in scoring, at least throughout the regular season most of the time. And he was just that spark. Every time you needed a bucket, you go to Rip. You run him off a screen off of Rasheed or Ben. He's going to be there. Nobody's going to be able to stick to him. He plays good defense. And just the mask.
It's iconic.
What can you say? The mask is incredible. It's so iconic. He just kept wearing it throughout his career because everybody loved it. He didn't need to wear it.
Well, I thought I heard it was if he broke his nose one more time, he would have to.
Probably.
There was some implication to it, but there wasn't a certain period of time where he just wore it because it was such an iconic, thing to Detroit, like the fro,
Yeah.
Ben Wallace fro. There was the Rip Hamilton mask.
Right.
Jordan, who you got at 4? We're trying to rail these off a little bit so we can spend some time on our number 1.
Definitely. My number 4 is Dennis Rodman.
Dennis Rodman, okay, the worm.
He's one of my favorite players of all time. Even though I didn't get to see him, just the heart and hustle and the excitement he had with the Pistons. The instant he dunked the ball, he was pointing to the crowd, he was hooting and hollering. That's awesome to me.
Malik, who you got at 4?
Me and the Tissick brothers think alike so much. Number 4, Dennis Rodman.
Yes, sir.
What the heart and the passion he put into that frame. He cried when he won a Defensive Player of the Year award because the Pistons and the game of basketball meant that much to him that if he didn't put his entire life into the Pistons, like what he did for that franchise is great to me. He was
a star.
The rebounding, and he wasn't that big. He was 6'7", but with the Pistons, he was around 210 pounds maybe. Nobody was out rebounded Dennis Rodman. The sheer effort and athleticism and will that he had back then.
And the incredible thing too is that he came from a junior college, and that when he came to the Pistons, he was like 24, 25 or something. He was kind of late. So, he was incredible. He doesn't make my favorites just because I didn't get to really watch him, and he probably is more known for being on the Bulls, but he's definitely a great Piston.
Yeah, for sure. That's why I agree with that. I got Rip Hamilton at my number 4. One of the greatest guards of all time. One of the guys I looked up to when I was like big into playing basketball. It was Rip Hamilton. It was Chauncey Billups because I was a shorter guy wanting to play basketball. One of the biggest things for me was he shot 46% from 3 in the 05-06 season. 46%. It was a crazy change in his game, especially since he was always known as a mid-range jump shooter. Moving on to number 3, Joey, who you got?
The man that I think played the integral part of making the championship run, Rasheed Wallace, number 3.
That's surprising to me. That's surprising.
This guy brought so much heart to this team, and just like everybody just kind of dug into it, and like everything that he did when he's standing in the center of the team during the starting lineups and he's waving his hands around and getting everybody excited. That's what I like to see. That was so much fun to go to a game and see Rasheed do that.
Oh, yeah.
The whole Ball Don't Lie series, like, it was incredible. The guy was so talented, and he brought this
swagger,
personality to the team. And yeah, he was a little bit of a hothead, but he toned it down when he came to Detroit, and he did it just the right amount where he could turn it up. Also one of the greatest post players of all time, and nobody talks about him.
I think he's one of the best 3-point shooters at the 4 position ever, too.
I think that
from 3-point range, he was deadly if you left him
I think
open.
he could have led this team in scoring, but he didn't have to.
He might be the most talented player out of that 5.
Right.
Not might, he was.
But Rasheed
was the most
There was
talented.
times where he would just take over a game, and you knew, like, nobody can. It's almost like Dirk, where he would do these turnaround fadeaways that nobody could touch. And he's 6'11" with a giant wingspan and get the ball. He shot the ball way above his head. He was just so good and skilled down in the post and could shoot it from anywhere. It was so exciting.
Yeah. Jordan, number 3.
My number 3, rocking the jersey, Big Ben.
Big Ben, fear the fro. All right.
Got to. His block on Shaquille O'Neal, iconic.
Yep.
Another
Completely agree
great
with
defensive play.
Yeah, that's number 2 for me in like Pistons blocks of all time. Tayshaun, you got to give it to Tayshaun first because of what was at the line. It was still on the line too in that Miami Pistons series, but they were down 3-1, and they were likely weren't going to come back anyways. But yeah, I like Ben Wallace at number 3. Malik, who you got?
My number 3 is Chauncey Billups.
All right.
Mr. Big Shot.
Okay.
One of the most important players in franchise history. You could always trust in him. Great leader, extremely smart player. I think it adds to his career to how he was a journeyman pretty much his first 4 or 5 years in the league. He started becoming good in Minnesota. He hits Detroit, and then all of a sudden something just sparked in him. And from then on, he was one of the top point guards in the league. I mean, he's first ballot Hall of Famer. Not much to say. He's just great point guard. He was the guy.
My number 3 kind of...
He was the face of that team.
My number 3 is close to yours. This is Isaiah Thomas, a point guard.
A
to
favorite.
Me, he's one of my favorite, yeah.
Okay.
Because of what he brought to the Pistons. 2 championships. Yes, I wasn't alive to see him play live, but everybody has highlights. There's even a documentary on him. There's stuff you can read about these guys. And if he didn't bring 2 championships to Detroit, he probably wouldn't be on my list. But he brought 2 championships. He's the greatest Piston of all time, and that weighs heavy on me. And that's why he is my number 3. Joey, who you got at 2?
Number 2 is Big Ben.
Big Ben at 2. Okay.
Just locking down the paint for the Pistons. Being able to guard guys like Shaq, Yao Ming. Like, there were some Tim Duncan. There were good big men back in the day
Great.
that this guy had to play against.
Some all-time greats.
And he locked a lot of them down. And again, he was another one of those guys that just brought heart to this team. And, he knew his role perfectly. Catch a couple lobs here and there, but he's going to just man the paint. He's going to lock down, not let anybody in. That's why this is one of the greatest. That team is one of the greatest, probably, in my opinion, obviously, the greatest defensive team of all time. Holding opponents under 80 points consistently is incredible. Watching that finals or the Eastern Conference where they played the Pacers, and I think their the game that they won to move on to the finals,
wasn't in the high 70s?
No, it was
60s.
60s.
Oh, okay.
I think it was like 67 to 65 the Pistons had won. Like, that is incredible. Granted, it's a different style, different time period, but Ben Wallace was the guy that made that happen, basically.
Jordan, who you got at 2?
My 2, Rasheed Wallace.
Nice.
Got to lead the league in techs, baby.
Yeah, that's right. I like it. I like
That's
it.
all about. Got to let the refs know they're cheating.
Exactly.
Him and Rip, actually.
Yep.
Yeah, Rip.
Him,
Later
yeah.
in his career, he got a lot more joy.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'd like to spend some more time, but we gotta getting pressed up against the clock here, so let's kind of go a little bit fast. Malik, who you got at 2?
My number 2 is Grant Hill.
Wow.
Grant Hill. Wow.
Whenever I go back and watch highlights of him or game footage of what he used to do for the Pistons, it blows my mind how much talent he had. 6'8", athleticism out of this world, great handle. I mean, there was nobody could handle him at that time when he was healthy for the Pistons.
Oh yeah.
It's just incredible to watch what he used to do for them.
He was
a walking highlight film every time he touched the floor.
And he was one of those players that people would pay to see, even if you weren't a Pistons fan. If he came to your town, you were gonna pay money to go see him play.
And yeah, like you said, unfortunately, with Jerry Stackhouse, unfortunately, he didn't lead to wins. Or Grant Hill, unfortunately, didn't lead to wins. But what he was able to do at that time and how good he was.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I'm going Chauncey Billups at 2 for me. It was a tough one between him and my number 1, but Chauncey at 2. And I want to get to everybody. Give us a couple minutes so everybody gets their chance at their number 1 player. Joey, who you got at number 1?
Representing the Detroit Pistons. First up, the Gods. Number 1 is out of the University of Colorado in the home red, blue, and white tonight.
Lindsey Hunter wore number 1 for the Pistons. Lindsey Hunter? Oh, Chauncey.
I'm so happy you played that because Mason is just the best in the league when it comes to that.
It has to be Chauncey Billups. He was a point guard. He wore number 1. I played a lot of point guard when I was younger, so growing up he was influential to me. Shot the three-pointer well. He was a different kind of guard where he was a bigger guard. They could back people down. He could do everything. Obviously, having the Mr. Big Shot, making all these crazy shots in different playoff games and stuff like that made me fall in love with him, just being that clutch guy and just being a great guy off the court. Every interview that he had is great. He just seems like a really personable guy, knows a lot, high IQ guy. And like Malik said, I think the journeyman thing really played a big part for me, seeing him develop into a Piston and really fall in love with the organization as well. That's always a big thing for me, and my favorite by far.
Joey Tyson's favorite Piston, Chauncey Billups. Jordan, who you got?
My favorite Piston is Rip Hamilton.
Rip. Okay, we got the backcourt right there with the Tyson brothers.
Always been a big fan. Love the motor. Never stopped moving.
Yeah.
Great scorer. I loved shooting mid-range. He's a mid-range shooter. I've met him. Got his autograph. Great guy. Wholesome.
Nice.
The mask made
iconic.
me want to wear a mask. When
Did
I
you
was
wear a
growing up.
mask?
I did not.
Oh.
But I did wear 32 my junior year of high school for him.
Nice.
Had
Nice.
to.
Malik, who you got at your number one?
My number one is Ben Wallace.
Big Ben.
Big Ben. I mean, like when I picture an NBA player, Ben Wallace is like the athlete for me. His strength and his size, even though he was only about 6'7", 6'8", 3-time defensive player of the year.
Four-time
Four-time actually.
time.
Should've been
Four-time defensive
5.
player of the year.
Huh?
Should have been 5.
Yeah,
but
it should have been 5.
he got outed by Ron Artest.
I mean, it's obvious that if you lose one out of that 5, starting 5, they probably won't win a championship. But I think Ben is the most important to that starting. If you lose Ben, you lose some of that defensive edge that they had as one of the greatest defensive teams ever. Ben was the guy that they knew would shut down the paint. If anybody stepped into that paint,
From Virginia Union
Exactly.
University.
when those gongs went off and those bells, you knew Ben Wallace. It was game time. You knew he was going to shut somebody down.
You know what? Shout out to Mason, too.
oh my
Yeah.
god.
My
Oh,
gosh.
he made
And
I've met that dude, too. Like, if we're talking about meeting these guys, that guy is one of the best people to meet. He is so genuine, and he is like that in real life. Like, how he sounds on the mic is how he is. He is that exciting. I wanted to give a shout out to Mason.
short Ben Wallace story.
Yeah.
When I was about 4 years old, I was in the mall with my mom, and I got lost for like 15 minutes. And I showed up with Ben Wallace and Chucky Atkins holding my hand.
Are you serious?
Wow.
wow. That is a story.
And
All
they-
right, that plays
Yeah.
into it.
And they both just gave me to my mom and said, I think you're looking for Malik. And they just,
Are you serious?
Yeah.
That's really cool.
they just, it was a weird story.
I wish
I-
we
I
had
got-
more. I
yeah.
wish we had more time to go into that.
Got lost
Yeah.
at the mall. Ben Wallace and Chucky Atkins found
Oh
me.
man, that. We should have let Malik go
Wow.
last. Cut it short here. My number one, Rasheed Wallace. I wear number 36 because of Rasheed Wallace. He's my guy. Just the way he talks trash on the court. I talk trash on the court. He kind of played that role into me. He shot the 3 ball. He made me want to shoot the 3 ball. He was, and I think it's cool that we all picked different going to work Pistons. None of us picked Tayshaun. Told you he's the lesser of the 5. But
Unfortunately.
Chauncey, Rip, Ben, Rasheed. That shows you our era of Pistons fanhood and what Pistons team really put a mark on our fanhood. And great show, guys.
I think it kind of messes up our expectations, honestly.
Yeah, that's true too.
That team was so great that I can't enjoy watching the Pistons now.
Yeah.
Because
Until we get a winner again.
Exactly. That's the team that is in my head when I see a great team and my favorite team.
Right.
Yeah, they're a
But-
unit too.
Honestly, we probably won't see a team at that level again, so I just got to get over it.
No,
Yeah.
come on, there's gonna be, but
There'll be another good Pistons team, but nothing like that.
Not that team.
It-
just hearing those intros
You can't
gives
match
me the
that again.
chills.
Exactly.
yeah. Well, that's our show, fellas. Great time. I'm glad we did it. We're gonna be doing more kind of like topic themed shows as the summer moves on. As we get into the slow part, probably the next three to 4 weeks, we'll have more themed shows. So look out for that. I want to give a thanks to Jordan Tysick coming into the studio.
Thanks for having me.
Glad to have you here, Jordan. Hopefully you'll be back sometime soon too.
Hope so.
Joey, Malik, I guess thanks for being here. I guess.
Always.
Um,
I'm always here.
but we'll see you guys next time.
Bye.
Ronald Dupree is great.